Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my power ranking series. For my number 17 team, we're going to be looking at the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so offensive line and the quarterback. Definitely interesting. Has gotten a little worse. I don't think we're going to debate that too much. Tyron Smith, I think I've taken away his star now just because he does play pretty well at tackle still at this age. My issue is you get maybe, 10 games out of him a year, if that even. So that's kind of my issue is the fact you're really not getting the full package with him as a tackle. Although I still think he can play up to a star caliber level player. They have Matt Waletzko and Josh Ball as their backup tackles here. Some guys with some really nice length that have some proven quality coming from some smaller organizations, but still I think it's worth noting both of them here. Connor McGovern is still here as kind of like a backup guard. I imagine they'll still put him at fullback. That's super fun. I love doing that. He seems all in on it. They did get Tyler Smith from Tulsa, which is very interesting because he is a special athlete. He's a pretty special athlete. When I was watching his tape, I think I ended up with a early third or late second round grade on him. I can't remember which one it was. But watching his tape, it is clear he is a bull in the china shop. Just technique all over the place. There's very, very little kind of soft finesse to his game or real understanding. It's going to take a little while for him to develop and get ready. So I'm totally good with them starting him at guard here. I wouldn't mind if they left him at guard completely and never moved him back to tackle, but I do think their plan is to move him back to tackle at some point, whether that be moving him to right to take over that spot, or to, when Tyron Smith eventually calls it, for eventually moving him to left. Either way is completely fine. But you do have veterans and a solid line coaching staff here to actually develop him. So while I wasn't overly enthusiastic at the pick, and I think it was definitely early, I can see the logic here and I can see what they're thinking. So definitely starting him at guard is the better decision. And I like that they did agree with that idea and have done so. Tyler Biadasz at center, he's just been kind of slow developing. He's at that replaceable level center, maybe low level end starter caliber of center. I don't know if he'll ever take the next step, but you could do worse. And I think keeping him on his rookie contract, I think for a team that's very cap strapped as well, is pretty solid. Zach Martin's still one of the best guards, if not the best guard here. Him and Quentin Nelson are always kind of neck and neck for me for which one I'd rather have. I love them both. I think you're super happy to have Martin. If Martin, Martin can kick out to tackle if need be. He's shown it on the right side. He is super versatile. I think this is a Hall of Fame caliber lineman. I don't know why. I haven't really heard anyone actually ever talk about that, but I would say Zach Martin does deserve the Hall of Fame, at least in my book. I think this is a great player, and I love that they've made sure they kept him here no matter what. Well done on that, Dallas Cowboys. Terrence Steele at right tackle, he's been up and down. He's had moments where he's actually been pretty decent. So I won't knock on it too hard, but I mean, going to Terrence Steele from Lyle Collins, I mean, it is a clear step down. It's going to be a clear step down. So I can see why they did it. They needed the money. They wanted to do a couple things in free agency and in the draft here, so it makes sense. But it has to be a notable downgrade, especially for Dak, who likes to play within structure and play exactly the way that the actual play concept was designed, and read every route and the idea that if X isn't open, I can go to Y, and if Y is not open, I can see the Z. When you're trying to play in that form of structure that it is super rigid, there's not much for the quarterback to kind of play around with. Like, even if there's structure plays where it almost looks out of structure, but it is designed that way where that if X isn't open, the quarterback's allowed to then check it to this, or roll out this way. Like, it's designed that way that the line moves in a certain way for that to happen. That's not really how Dallas does their stuff. It is very rigid, that if X isn't open, look for Y, and that is it. That's just the order of operations. And Dak excels in that scheme. That's why this here I do have a star for him. I was talking about Carr last video. I have them super close around that, just around that 10 range. It's it's interesting to watch, and I am a little worried that the lack of right tackle will hurt Dak. He seemed to be okay with it, and I will say just okay. When he wasn't there early on, he was managing just fine. I just worry about how many shots he can potentially take. Because as a Dallas Cowboys team, you really do not want to see Dak sustain another injury, as I think that basically writes off this whole season for you. You have to protect Dak as much as you can, and keep this play and structure, this very rigid structure, as much as you can going down forward. So I like Dak. I like some of the players that are still here. But the gaps that have appeared now on this line do make me worried for Dak's health and how much this offense can actually produce. Backfield and receivers. Okay, so they tagged Dalton Schultz. He's having issues with the actual front office right now. He seems like he does not want to show up. He is. I think he. I don't know if he is getting fined. I know he can be because he has already signed his tag. Uh, Big note here is that Ferguson is actually a fairly similar player, like kind of this exact same build. Kind of these kind of check and release blockers who do well in these little intermediate to short routes. It's kind of scary how close they are. So if worst comes to worst, I would not be surprised if they hold strong on not giving Schultz an extension. It's like, no, we'll let Ferguson take over next year. I would not be surprised if that's actually the order of operations of what happens. So do keep an eye on that. Talent wise, Schultz is just okay. I think the tag was a bit much for him, in my opinion. I would not have done that, especially since that tag, at least in my mind, costed me Lyle Collins. Regardless, they clearly like him. They see something there. I don't know if I fully buy into the idea that they have him here to extend him. I think it might be a 1 year rental. Backfield, Elliott and Pollard, pretty good duo. Elliott takes most of the early downs and brunt work, while Pollard takes more of these kind of third down looks, more of these inside zone looks, where you can kind of utilize his kind of quickness and explosiveness, quick burst, and change of direction. He's also really fun at special teams, but I know some people will argue Pollard is better than Elliott. To me, they're different players. I think they complement each other super well, but for what you're paying Elliott, I think is where I start having issues. You're paying him much more than almost every other running back that has gotten paid, and for him to not produce in the exact same way as those guys produce is concerning. Well, if I was the front office, I would be asking Elliott to take a pay cut, or else I would be considering cutting him. I would not be surprised if that's eventually where this goes. It would hurt because him and Dak seem to be quite close, and he is a bit of a fan favorite. We'll see how this plays out. It's a bit worrisome to me. I hope they find a better middle ground for them to work. Wide receivers. The Michael Gallup extension, it is a massive vote of confidence. That is a 5 year deal. That is not nothing. And they paid him decently well. Now, nowhere near what the receivers have gotten paid in the last, couple months. So in that way, it is nice. But man, that's to lose Cooper in that as well is hurtful. You need Gallup to step up now. It has to be I am the number 2 receiver here now, not later. Now. It's I don't know, coming off an injury like that, who's always Gallup's always kind of been just a decently good receiver. It's asking a lot of him, and I hope he mentally sticks up with it because he's going to be criticized and viewed under the microscope for everything. I do like the James Washington 1 year signing. I think he's actually a pretty quality player, quality number 4 to slot guy if you do need to kick him inside. I think there is something to state about them getting him here. They grabbed Jalen Tolbert as well, or Tolbert. I don't know how he pronounces it. I don't know if it's a French origin or not, but I usually say Tolbert. Uh, he's an interesting rookie. I did like him. I had a fourth round grade on him. I think he can be a quality receiver. I don't know how high his actual like height of potential is, so to speak. But to get him to kind of fill out your receiving room, I'm completely fine with that. Especially since CD Lamb here is going to be taking most of the brunt of the force now. I really do like CD Lamb. I think he's played pretty well here. He's a super versatile receiver. You can kick him in the slot to the Y to the X. He has no problem playing all over the field, and his actual burst after the catch is very special as well. On top of that, I actually love his ability with the ball after he gets it. So for what I was talking about, this is a very rigid structure of offense where there's really no interpretation for the quarterback. Having a player like this, where if he just needs to take that third option, Lamb can get more than what would be initially actually given, right? So if it's like a 3 yard check down, Lamb can make that an 8 yard check down just because he's that good after the catch. It's just something to keep note. I love that there. I still actually gave CD Lamb the star. I think he's about to or has earned it, at least in my mind. He's right on that line as well. But I think there is to be something to be said that he is a quality player and very exciting for this Cowboys offense. Defensive front seven. There's some really fun stuff here. I do want to do a quick note. Damone Clark at linebacker. He has interesting measurables. I have him as a fourth round grade. But that injury late into the draft season, you really might not see him this year. But I do want you to keep him in mind for the future. So let's start talking about some fun players. Neville Gallimore, Tristan Hill, they had some qualities to them that could have been interesting. They haven't really shown much, so I'll just kind of leave them as there. I don't expect either anything more than like replaceable starter play out of the two of them. The one that is more interesting to me is Osa Odigizua, who is a lighter guy, probably fits better in a 3-4 scheme, but regardless, he has excellent pass rush ability. He is super violent with his hands, and he actually has this almost unique ability of, so you can see it when you watch his tape. Also, even if you go back to college, you can see it. His eyes are super active in that backfield. He isn't just doing moves to do them. They are super purposeful in what they're doing. It is I am doing this move because I want to shed into this gap because I know that player in about 2 seconds is about to come into this lane because of what he's reading. And most of the time he's right, which is super nice to have. Like I love having a player that intelligent on the inside. It is almost like, well, I didn't really talk about him too much, but it's almost like Thomas Booker, who, at least on my scale, when I was looking at interviews, watching him talk, watching him play, he emulates Osa in a lot of ways, at least mentally, where he can kind of play at a variety of techniques on the line, and he is so mentally far ahead of some of what's happening that he can kind of get to some spots before the play is developed to that point. So there's something special about having a player like this, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to really make some noise in the next coming months. So keep an eye on Osa Odigizua. At the one edge spot, we have Dorrance Armstrong with Sam Williams, a rookie. Probably going to be rotating to take those spots. I'm not overly big on that. I don't really like either player too much. I had Sam Williams pretty low. I think I had him as a early fourth, late third. He's got some ability coming from Ole Miss, but not anything that was above some of the other stuff of the other edge players I preferred over him. Dorrance Armstrong is just super familiar with this scheme. He can play quality. There is Bosham here to play some rundowns as well. But for this other edge group, it's going to be a rotation of people. I don't expect much. And at linebacker, you have Leighton Vander Esch. There's a couple other smaller guys here that could do some things, but they're more scheme specific or looking at taking away certain looks. Vander Esch took a 1 year to come back here. He used to be so dominant, but those injuries really stacked up on him, and he's not quite there. He's still decent, but just not quite to the same level that he once was. So I think the Cowboys are gambling that maybe he gets back to that again. And if not, oh well, he'll still get some decent linebacker play with a guy who's super familiar with your organization. So it's definitely a worthwhile gamble for them. Uh, Other edge two here, Demarcus Lawrence. He'll be coming off that left side more or less, but they can move him around a little bit more. He's a super fun edge player. I love the restructured deal that they did together. I think that works out so well for both sides. He is a super stout run defender. He plays with such power. He developed well here. He seems like he's become such a leader of that defense as well. He has matured here. I respect Lawrence so much as a player, and I think if I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, this would be like one of the jerseys I have to have. He'll go down probably in the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor. At least I'd hope he does. I think he deserves it, or is going to be deserving of it coming up soon. Now, I don't know how you really classify him. I just call him weapon because that's really what Micah Parsons actually is. He's just weapon. There's no real single mold you can fit Micah Parsons in. And I am so glad they actually use him the way that I was hoping he would be used when I saw him drafted. I was worried they were just gonna stick him at off-ball linebacker and just, all right, you're always gonna be playing Sam. That's it. That's where you're gonna sit. They blitz him, they stunt him, they let him come down and rush straight off the edge. They let him stand on the line, then drop back. They let him man cover. It's a thing of beauty to actually watch a defense actually utilize a very unique player like Micah to his fullest extent. He's he's super explosive. He's super fast. Like when I mean fast, I mean he is like quick to turn hips, super speed to keep up with guys who do have legitimate speed, especially at like tight end or running back. Some of these guys he's stuck with are like 200 pounds, and he's 40 pounds over them. Like he is a unique player build with some high end talent. I like the group that he's with here. I hope he keeps on the straight and narrow. I know there's some issues in college with him, but I think there can be something really special here with Micah Parsons being utilized on this defense, and clearly the defensive staff love him and know what to do with him. Full credit to the Cowboys on this one. Defensive backs. It is kind of an interesting mishmash of players here. You have Malik Hooker and Wilson to play that free safety role. I do like that rotation of safeties. I think Hooker's more of that typical rangy free safety. You can bring Wilson out for more of these run looks where you're a little more pushed up against the wall. Jaron Curse actually played pretty well last year. I think he's definitely earned the benefit of the doubt and he earned the contract he's been given. I like that he's back here. I think he can play that box role extremely well. I can't really say much more else about that. He surprised me last year with saying, "Okay, I finally got it. It's clicked for me," and I expect that he will continue that play for this foreseeable future. Cornerbacks. This is an interesting group. There's Brown. There's also Lewis, who I'm not high on. Both these guys more and often play that slot role. They're okay. I think there is better slot options, and paying two of them isn't my favorite thing, but Brown's contract's done after this year, and I think Lewis has another year after. They're just okay, but as you can see from last year, if you watch some of their highlights, even you can see them get beat pretty bad in certain matchups. So that's probably why they rotate them so heavily. But Brown, especially, Brown had a rough game last year where he was just picked on all game. We'll see how that goes. You have Kelvin Joseph, or Mr. Bossman Fat, as he likes to go by. I actually really liked him out of Kentucky. He has some issue with the law right now, or at least was accused of something. I don't know how much weight there actually is to it. It seems like it might have been just a by proxy thing. He was just kind of close to someone or close to the situation. I'll be monitoring that as time goes on, but if you do get to use him, I actually think he's a very quality number two corner. I think he has some really fun kind of twitch athletics, and his ball skills are actually very underrated. Also, like Trayvon Diggs here, who also has excellent ball skills, but we'll get to that in a moment. I really like Kelvin Joseph. I liked him more for a man front, but he's actually shown to me in this last little while that he can totally fit this off zone scheme that they've been running. that really lets these corners be super aggressive on breaking down on balls. So for that, I think Kelvin has adjusted pretty well, and I think having him start as your number 2 corner, not a bad idea. Trayvon Diggs, he, I've got a love-hate relationship with him. He plays in transition a lot, and he takes a lot of chances, which is why he gets the turnovers he gets, along with the elite ball skills he does possess. But it's also why he gives up like over 1,000 yards of deep bombs. Like it is a risk reward when you're playing with him as corner. I'm not quite ready to give him star. I have to be hesitant on that, especially when you're giving up that many yards. But there is something unique to him. You have to give him credit for his ability to get those interceptions, and to take those gambles and be right a decent amount of the time. I can't say good because again you're giving up way too many yards. But regardless, I think there is something special with him there, and to keep Diggs and Joseph as your outside corners, which is a very young crew, and for them to show some quality already, I think is super fun and super nice for this team that is tight on money and is probably gonna have to start doing some cap management in these next couple years. I think you could do a lot worse. Okay, so special teams and coaching. Fassel's all right as a coordinator. There's up and downs with some things that are going on, but I think he's improving. The actual teamers themselves have been an obvious downgrade. Brian Anger's kind of just okay as a punter. Going to the rookie from Zerline is an obvious downgrade, and it is a worrisome one. You're gonna hope you get McPherson out of him, but he was not touted in that way. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but I really would not expect anything great. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, he's really stepped it up here. He has proven to me that he does fit better as a coordinator. He played really well coming from not Atlanta, Seattle was where he was originally as a coordinator, and he proved there that that is where he is comfortable, and it shows immediately with the Dallas Cowboys team. He knows how to use his guys to his fullest extent. I would not be surprised if at some point some team gets a little desperate and does try to pull him away. I'm glad he has stuck to his guns and stuck here. I think that was a good decision by him. Kellen Moore, he's a fun offensive coordinator. He does, I said, he has this very rigid structure of offense that he likes playing in. But even so, it's a very productive offense, and he is utilizing what he has to their full talent. Like when I say it's a super rigid structure of a system, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that certain talents are going to fit it better, and he uses those talents pretty well. I know there was some idea that he might get a college coaching job. I think that's actually a decent idea for him in the future. But for now, he is a pretty decent offensive coordinator. You can do a hell of a lot worse. Mike McCarthy as a head coach is not my favorite. He, I mean, lying to get the job is not always a great thing. He did lie, and he's admitted as such. That's not a good way to start your time with not only an organization but a very prominent one. So he's made the playoffs, but to me, with how this Cowboys team is shaped, if you don't, if you're not able to win playoff games with the way this is shaped with those expectations, that I think is when you start looking at a failure as a head coach. So McCarthy really has a lot of pressure on him to get it together. I will give him some relief on that. He definitely has pressure on him, but the microscope is out. You have to perform. This team is ready to perform, and I think the fan base would agree that it is time for them to perform as well. So overall, tons of talent still here, but a lot of the players are either old or coming off injury or injury prone. They really need like every rookie they drafted to basically be a hit and contribute early for a very solid push to be made. But the talent is absolutely there to get the playoffs. That's why they're kind of on the edge, especially in that division that they're in. There is absolutely a world in which they make the playoffs again, but I'm going to be a little hesitant this time around as I think the holes need a little while to be filled still. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time. Later.